the future here. And I would like to welcome two leaders who are experts in this area. We have with us Patrick Law, who is the operations chief of Fiserv's Card Service Division, a creative, out-of-the-box thinker, client-centric, and employee-engaged leader. Patrick is responsible for the daily operational management of 4,000 ATM debit network financial services clients. So Patrick, go ahead and turn on your camera so that you can join us. And Cliff, do the same as well, please. And we also have with us Cliff Tironi, who is the managing partner of DevelopMe and is a co-creator of their proprietary real-time feedback platform used as a core tool in driving their digital transformation consulting. Cliff has a passion for data visualization as a method to uncover deeper meaning and powerful insights. Patrick and Cliff, welcome. Thank you so much for being with us today and sharing your expertise.
Happy to be here.
Glad to be here. Great. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And you should see it now. Well, thank you for that wonderful introduction, Jose, and Patrick, thanks for joining us here, and glad to be doing this together. We're going to dig right into the content here, and we're here to talk about building the workforce of the future to achieve excellence. We're going to cover a lot of topics here today, so like I said, we're going to dig right in, but to give you a sense of where we're headed the next 35 minutes together, we're going to talk about what real-time feedback is. We're going to talk then and hear directly from Patrick as a leader at Fiserv, the amazing things that he and his team are doing to build a really strong growth feedback culture. And Patrick will give you some more info about who Fiserv is, but then we're really going to focus in on two core components of their strategy, which is listening to client feedback and then also internally driving employee excellence. And then we'll round that out with some next steps in Q&A. So what is real-time feedback? This is a term that you may have heard thrown around over the past few years. Some of you may even use some tools that are out there. When you think about real-time feedback and your interactions that you're having on a day-to-day basis with your colleagues, with your clients, with your vendors, that we have all this communication channels swirling about us. We have chats and surveys and one-on-one and emails and calls. The challenge with those is that it can be very, very difficult to capture those interactions in a systematic and organized way. And when we think about developmental feedback, it's even hard to sometimes even elicit feedback from the people that are closest to you. So real-time feedback is a way for you to do just that. It's a way for you to capture those important interactions that you either have with a colleague, or if you notice something about a particular process or a system that could be improved, it's a way for you to submit that feedback, review it in a really, really highly structured and organized way. And so before we dig into the content here, I want you to think for a minute about a time that you've received feedback that has helped you improve. Or maybe there was a time that you didn't receive feedback and you should have. And so take a few seconds to consider some of these questions. Would receiving meaningful feedback at a certain point in your career have really impacted your professional trajectory? Or maybe you didn't receive it, and how did that impact you? How did it make you feel if you did receive it? How did it make you feel that you didn't receive it? And then how would it have been an unlocker for you if you did receive that kernel of gold, that nugget of truth? And so these are some of the things that I want you to think about. And then even more broadly, when you expand that beyond your own self and you look at your team and your company, right? And you're going to hear about this from Patrick at Fiserv. What would it mean to your company if they had a really robust feedback culture, and what would that mean to your productivity? So as you think of those questions, I would love to turn it over. And Patrick, could you share a personal anecdote here of a time that you have or haven't received feedback that has helped you?
All right, can you see and hear me now? All right.
I can hear you.
All right, very good. Feedback I've received in the past that has stuck with me, lingered with me, and it was courageous feedback, was that I don't give people the impression that I'm listening. That if they come into my office or if I'm in a meeting with them, I'm always moving. Like if you could see my legs underneath my desk, they're going crazy. I don't sit still very well. My mind is constantly racing forward. And I sometimes get this look on my face like I'm looking through the back of their heads. But I was really unaware of what that looked like or how that was perceived. And it was being taken as, I'm not interested, I don't have time for them, their words don't matter. And that was an interesting moment. That was probably 13, 14 years ago. I'm 23 years into my career. I feel bad for the first 10 years and everybody I was in meetings with. But I had a person come to me and share that, and it helped me in a big way to focus, pay attention, and make people feel like I'm with them and present.
Oh, wow, that's great. Thank you, Patrick, for sharing that. And we don't have enough time in the day for me to go over all the helpful feedback that I've received, but I appreciate you sharing that anecdote. So as you heard there, Patrick say, that's an example of feedback that helped him. And one of the tools that Fiserv uses, in this case around real-time feedback, is DevelopMe. Now, there are a lot of platforms out there, a lot of systems. This is not going to be a demo of the platform, but 3 of the core components that you will hear Patrick speak to that I think will help contextualize what you're hearing is that through DevelopMe, Fiserv is able to capture B2B client feedback from their financial institutions that they service. They also use it internally to help support employees' competencies and growth. And then there's also a module called Entity Feedback, which we'll go over here in a little bit. And that is when associates, that is when clients can give feedback, not necessarily to a person, but they can give feedback on a thing, right? In Fiserv's case, they can give feedback on certain products or services that they offer. So these are some of the core modules. So as you think about real-time feedback, it's more than just getting person to person, it's also collecting it from a variety of stakeholders in a number of areas. And just to give you a sense of what the tool actually looks like, on the left-hand side, you can see an example of someone giving feedback to somebody else, right? That's going to a specific person. And on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see that feedback is, in this case, being given to the project support team. It's not going to a particular person. I hope that helps here give a little bit more color into how feedback is being collected at Fiserv. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Patrick, and he's going to talk through some of the amazing things that they're doing to build a growth feedback culture.
Sure. You can go to the next page, Cliff. So this is a page that I use in introductions when I'm traveling the country, meeting the teams I'm responsible for. It's a way for them to get to know me, that I'm not just, a person in a position at the corporation, that I have a family, that I have a history that I'm very proud of, and a career that I enjoy partaking in and growing. That bottom picture, I was 19 years old in southern Iraq for the first Gulf War, and we all have an alter ego that we bring to work with us, or experiences from our past that make us who we are. And how we impact people around us matters, particularly in a corporate environment. And you'll hear me talk about COVID-19 a few times and what it was like moving hundreds and hundreds of employees home and having a geographic spread across the country for people in positions like mine and my direct reports and their direct reports. Cross geographical leadership is not easy, and it requires a small army to pull it off and to do it well. And the reason I like showing this picture to people is to say the people I was there with is what I'm mostly proud of. They're never going to build a statue of Patrick Law at the Pentagon for anything I did in the military. I'm proud of my service. But the people I was with were giants in their space at the time. And I was always in the right place at the right time. And I learned by watching them how they provided feedback to each other, how they discussed critical moments with each other, and how communication was in constant movement while the battles were unfolding and our mission was unfolding while we were in the Middle East. And I brought that with me in corporate America. No one's shooting at us, and I do not try to militarize the environment, but I certainly try to mimic or parrot or pay respect to the leadership I witnessed as a young person in the military, because I think it's effective and it's useful. You can go to the next page. You can read the words on the page. I'm not going to do that for you during this presentation, but I am going to say, you know, I'm a believer in listening versus hearing. You know, you saw my beautiful wife on the other slide there. There are moments where I'm drifting in and out of consciousness, and you heard from feedback I received in corporate America. I'm often thinking about 5 or 6 things at once. I think this tool, I know this tool, I've seen this tool develop me, bring people closer together and to tear down silos and to help us listen and not just hear a noise coming at us from customers, from our employees, from our coworkers. I think building a cohesive team requires unique tool sets and a grit and a determination to stay focused on the mission you're on. My mission is people. There's no way Fiserv accomplishes what it accomplishes without the people using the tools that we have. Develop Me helps get us there, helps me see the landscape. You'll see a little bit of that later on. My team consists of 1,000 US-based employees, and we sent them all home in less than a week when the COVID crisis first kicked off. I have 9 locations around the country where this staff operates out of. And I spent a lot of time on airplanes going around and seeing them, meeting them, letting them see me, hearing what they have to say about the types of tools they're using, what the customers are saying. But now we sent everybody home and they're juggling their children and they're juggling their spouses, and maybe they're single and don't have children. And we need to be able to hear what's going on with them because we still expect them to service our customers. Having an engaged workforce creates an engaged client base. Clients will buy more things from you. They will renew with you. They will stay with you if they feel like the people they're dealing with day to day are engaged with their environment. Because if they can't feel like, or they don't see that the people they work with, the staff of Fiserv is engaged with their brand and the Fiserv brand, why should they be engaged with it? So feedback to me is not just for employees, it's externally as well. You can go to the next page and the next page. So a little bit about Fiserv here. I tell my team all the time, because it's hard to describe and explain what we do for a living, but I like to tell them to say, you know, we move commerce forward. People around the world use our products. Tens of millions of people are walking around with plastics in their purse or their wallet, or visiting ATMs that we drive. Their traffic's being carried out of stores where they're buying gasoline or groceries across various networks. We're truly interconnected and global. And those people on the other end of our products work very hard for their income. They want access to it. If they want their money, it should always be there. So I tell people, if someone asks you what you do, say we move commerce forward. We allow people, we provide the opportunity for 24/7, always on access to their hard-earned funds. We like to say at Fiserv that we move money and information that moves the world, or we move money and information that moves the world. And I truly believe that. If you listen to the "we move commerce forward" words I was using, that's a lot of power in people's hands to care for other people's livelihoods. We're in 100 countries around the world, and we have 44,000 associates that make up this fintech organization. And we strive to treat our customers' brand as if it's our own. I'm always out talking to our staff about that. There's 4,000 financial institutions out there that say to Fiserv, take care of my debit cards, make them work, take care of my ATMs, make them work, take care of the people who bank with me. And that's a big deal, because a lot of people, you know, most organizations live and die by the reputation of their brand and how it's treated. So we move commerce forward and we take care of other people's brands as if it's our own. You can go to the next page. It's been an interesting road the last few 18 months, I guess. I was part of US Bancorp with a division called Elan Financial Services that was acquired by Fiserv in November of 2018. 3 months later, Fiserv announced it was acquiring First Data. And if you're a student of or a customer of this market that we operate in for digital payments, electronic funds transfer, et cetera, it was a big deal. And that's a lot of culture to bring together. And the cards division that I helped lead is really the confluence of all of that change. Because as the organizations came together, there were pieces and parts and products that one had, but the other didn't. So there's not a lot of integration going on from a product perspective elsewhere. But in the cards division, ATMs, debit, some credit, network, there's a lot of change happening. And my team is made up almost now of 33% Elan Financial Services, 33% Legacy Fiserv, and 33% Legacy First Data. 3 very proud brands, proud lineage, that take a lot of pride in what they do across the world. And if you're going to be the focal point of all of that change, like my team is, with the products, the services, and the people, you got to make sure you're doing it right, and you got to make sure that you can hear what's happening. Sprinkle COVID back in. I can't get on an airplane anymore and travel professionally to go put my eyes on my staff. I put a lot of time in on aircraft going to see what's happening. I spend a lot of time networking with my own team. I go 3, 4, 5 levels down in the organization because that's where the truth lives. And now we have to learn culture at the same time, not just execute payments missions, but understand how the people's experience is while they're being integrated. It's scary to go through an acquisition. And you've got these 3 brands coming together in the middle of all that. It's a lot of work. You can go to the next page. This is just an org chart that I like to show people. I think titles and positions are incredibly important. Remember, I'm a military guy way back in the day. So I understand chain of command and rank and structure and the need for it. It does bring a discipline and it helps people see where they're headed. But I believe that the people that make up those org charts are really where you need to invest your time. And I want a balanced organization. I mean, if you heard what we did, it's a technology company. We're a people company that sells technology. You know, I like to say that to people as well. We have to be competent at data processing. We have to be competent at counting money. We have to be competent at keeping systems running. Absolutely. You can't run a company the size of Fiserv with some of the stats you saw on that prior page while I was talking and not have technical competence. But I want people with character as well. You know, the ability to be transparent. Do they bring their authentic selves to work? Have they ever been in an environment where it was okay to talk like that? Bring your authentic self. Tell me the hard truth. Give me the open and honest two-way communication and feedback. Tell me where I fall down, me, Patrick. And I want my team to be able to have that environment and that type of culture. So integrating the brands, but also integrating the 3 cultures together to match this chart. We're never going to get it 50-50. You just can't do it. I mean, I'll never stop trying, but moving the needle from competence to character, we can do that here. And Develop Me helps me do that because it's another lens into the organization's ebbs and flows and its personality. Every organization has a personality. I'm bringing 3 together. My bosses are bringing 3 together. Fiserv is bringing 3 cultures and personality types together. Again, with all that history and lineage, how do you cut through the middle of that as fast as you can with as much quality as you can? So this is the type of org chart I'm trying to set up as it relates to each of the teams I'm responsible for. You can go to the next page. So the feedback culture, you know, I want to be thoughtful about what people are experiencing as these brands come together, no matter what brand they came from or what their job is with us, whether they've been there 2 months or 42 years, how they experience me as a leader, how they experience my direct reports and their direct reports and their direct reports. The hierarchy of the organization. We try to keep it relatively flat because you have more control and touch, if you will, of what's happening with the customers, what's happening with the technology, but it's still deep and it's vast. And with COVID, we're all home. So keeping a bead on what's happening is critical for my team. It's critical for me. 75% of the client escalations I personally take, where somebody says, hey, we got to get Patrick involved. This problem is getting, you know, it's being spun out of control. We need his help. And I get on the call with the customers 75% of those calls that I hear the story, I do the research with my team, 75% of those is from a break in communication. Johnny didn't tell Sally something was happening. Sally didn't tell Johnny something was happening. Teams communication broke down. The amount of work or the pace at which we're moving steps in the way and shortcuts are taken. And I'm all about coloring outside the lines. I mean, I think you heard in my bio, I'm a bit of an out of the box thinker. I would not consider myself a standard corporate leader. I like to do things a little differently. I do believe in the wild, wild west to take care of customers the right way. But if you're going to step outside the lines of procedure and process, you better communicate it. Because if you're going to step outside those lines, the chances of something happening negatively to the customer or their customers increases with each step you skip. So if you're not communicating properly and you're not part of an engaged environment that knows how to communicate, that's going to spin out of control pretty quickly. I want an integrated, collaborative, engaged workforce that's willing to do what it needs to do to take care of a customer the right way, but communicate those changes so the other impacted groups and teams and the customer even know what you're doing. You have to open up and communicate. This tool and why we're here today talking about this helps us train our staff, helps us make our staff get closer to self-awareness. If you are not self-aware of your own skills or talents or shortcomings or where you need to focus, or even your strengths, focusing on your strengths and us pouring more into those strengths, getting more out of those strengths from you for our customers, for your coworkers, for your teams, we have to find unique ways to know how to exploit their strengths, to allow them to work on things that they take pleasure in. A lot of people are in jobs, you know, and it's a place to learn, but their strengths, their personal strengths, what they like to do may not match what we're paying them to do. So from a leadership perspective, I want to be able to understand some of that information so I can give them a little more of that. I don't live in a fantasy land where I think I can make work fun all the time. Work is hard. Nobody comes home and says, honey, I'm home from fun. They say I'm home from work. But if we can make work manageable from a culture perspective, where they feel like we're thoughtful about their careers and how they treat our customers and how our customers treat them, then we win. Because that starts to translate out to the customers that we truly are an engaged workforce. And we care about the people on the other end of our products that we sold you. And we certainly care about the people that are within the walls of Fiserv servicing those products. You can go to the next page. Aaron Hawk is a leader on my team. We actually started using Develop Me 3 years ago when we were still at US Bancorp in a risk and fraud group that serviced business to consumer. 95% of my team, Patrick Law's team in Fiserv, is business to business. I'm servicing, speaking to, dealing with financial institutions and their leadership, their staff. Beyond those financial institutions are millions and millions of cardholders, tens of millions of people. It's shocking the spider web Fiserv has, and it's so much fun every day. But again, we have to take that super seriously, and I wanted to build a team of people that understood that with the passion and intensity that I understand it, that what we do for a living impacts the lives of tens of millions of people. And that's not being over the top, that's what we're selling. Caring for their brand, caring for the people that chose to use that financial institution for their credit cards, their debit cards, for their purchasing, for their ATM access. And we chose this team. Aaron is a very engaged leader. His leadership at the time was a very engaged leader, and we gave it to a staff of about 65 people. And within a month, they started to get comfortable, and then 2 months, 3 months, with each month that went by, more and more comfortable sharing feedback with each other up the chain. But the part that excited me about this specific team and what made me want to sink my teeth deeper into this is they started sharing feedback with each other, not just up the chain of command and down the chain of command, but left and right. They could hear each other talking to customers. They could hear each other talking on internal meetings, prepping for customer moments. And they started providing themselves feedback on how they were doing. And that's the real power of this thing. It doesn't have to be top down to receive quality feedback, a quality engagement. I think it's better left to right. You can go to the next page. And I think this is you, Cliff.
Yep, there we go. I'm just getting myself off mute. All right, thanks for that, Patrick. So this is another great quote, and thank you for those stories there, Patrick. Around what we're going to walk you through now is how Fiserv is actually using real-time feedback to drive client engagement. And this isometric graph, I think, really paints a comprehensive story. Excuse me. And then Patrick's going to walk you through some more details, in particular around some of the analytics that Fiserv is using to drive meaningful change and listen to their clients at Fiserv. So on the left-hand side here, you could see this is an example scenario where you have a client, right? One of Fiserv's financial institutions that they service can give feedback to a client service team about a recurring service issue that they're experiencing. So the client puts that in the platform, and then in step 2 there, you could see that that feedback gets assigned to a customer service rep, CSR. That CSR can see the feedback, they can review it, and then in step 3 in the middle of your screen, that CSR can actually escalate that to senior leadership and ask for assistance. And the interesting thing here is that that CSR can recognize that this piece of feedback that was submitted from this client is not specific to that client. It's actually something more broader than that, and it impacts many other clients. So then in step 4, there you could see that the client services leadership can review that feedback, and now they can strike up a meaningful cross-functional conversation, in this case with the disputes department, to help bring in their support and address that systemic challenge. So then in step 5, you could see that the disputes team, they can see that feedback, they can review it, they can understand the particulars about it, and then also how that might be impacting other clients. Now in step 6, in the middle of your screen, let's go back to that CSR. The CSR can actually close the loop with the client and say, hey, look, we heard you. These are the actions that we took as a result of it. Oh, by the way, I would love to get your feedback on how we actually helped address your concerns, not at the end of a project, right? But as in the fluidity of how that actual project is unfolding. And so that CSR can do that with a client. And then lastly, in the upper right-hand screen, you have someone, an executive like at Patrick at his level, where they're able to look across these trends and ensure a really high level of satisfaction and excellence. So in this case, again, we're going to get into the analytics now. Clients can easily give that feedback. The feedback is routed to the appropriate person. And then in this case, you'll see here that Fiserv is using it in really meaningful ways to drive change by integrating it into their daily business operations. And so with that, I'll turn it over. Patrick and I are going to go over some slides here. He's going to speak to some of the client feedback and the sentiment around that, and then we'll give you some other really interesting visuals and insights into Fiserv's client feedback.
The visuals are my favorite, so I'll be brief on this slide. Just last week, because I see the client's feedback. Like I'm on this system. I'm just not out there selling it to my staff and driving usage. I mean, I'm a user, and I can see our clients' feedback real time. And there's a nuance here that you don't think about when you're setting this stuff up. That's very cool, at least cool for me. And I had an interaction with one of my direct reports a Saturday ago, and one of our customers provided feedback to somebody who they were very pleased with that helped them solve a problem. But as they were writing the feedback to the employee about how well they did solving a problem, they referenced that, you know, Johnny did such a great job solving my problem after I spent X amount of days, weeks trying to find the answer. There's where I go. I go to that. I love that Johnny was praised by one of our financial institutions. That's what this tool's here for, right? Let Johnny see that real time, not from their bosses, but from a customer, a paying revenue generating customer that found their work pleasing, informative, and rounded out what they needed. But I drifted to the story of why did it take so long to get to Johnny? And then you can start your research, and then you start finding out what happened here. And it actually starts pointing to the need for maybe more training, more awareness, more understanding of what the definition of client-centric is. So this is a powerful tool, and I love the feedback that we get. And you can see the positivity rate that we're getting so far because we do a good job. I mean, operations should be Latin for tough, right? I don't often get the phone calls that say, hey, great job today. I mean, operations people live in a world where you're there for the problem. For the X percentage of things that go wrong, we need you to help fix us. So I love the positivity. It helps our people see that it's not just about bad things that are happening. We're doing a very good job, but it's the nuance of the messaging that can help us drill in to get better and better and better. Like the story I just told. What happened prior to Johnny getting involved that we can get better at next time. Also showing the customers that we were listening. Remember my hearing listening piece at the beginning? We provide feedback back to the customer. We close the loop with the customer through the app so they know we saw it and what we did. This direct report, her team went a little further and actually called the customer to talk about the journey to get to Johnny and then to thank the customer for making comments on Johnny. It shows the customer, it demonstrates to the customer we're leading from the front with regards to listening to what their needs are. You can go to the next slide. And the next one. So Cliff and his team, the force multiplier here isn't just the app and the feedback you get with it. It's the team at Develop Me and the science behind the app, the tools. I like this kind of stuff. I'm a bit of a business geek, and my undergrad's in sociology, so I actually find human beings quite interesting. And considering I lead a lot of them, that's probably a good thing. But I want to be able to visualize this network of humans I have servicing 4,000 financial institutions, tens of millions of cardholders, moving literally trillions of dollars a year of their hard-earned money. I want to see the collaboration. I want to see how the feedback is being shared. I've been a silo killer my whole career. You heard me reference earlier that communication is 75% of the escalations I get, lack thereof, not great, didn't happen type of communication. I want to see how the teams are interacting with each other. This is a map of my locations and where I have staff and how that feedback is crisscrossing across the country. Go to the next page. I like this because it shows the management levels, right? So I think Cliff made me the green dot on the left, and then the associate level staff is in the blue, and then management in between. And I want to see the hops. So I understand the external feedback. I mean, I wanted the customers to have this so bad, and the teams that developed me, my crews did such a good job getting that out to the customers. That dream from 2 years ago of really being transparent, which can be scary sometimes to get that raw feedback, has come true. But I keep driving the internal use as well. If we get better, we're better for our customers. And now our customers get to help make us better. That's a real partnership. Customers before would get a survey, hey, how are we doing? Oh, they're doing great. But now you can actually go to the associate level and give feedback as a customer and help that associate grow. You're in the game now. You're just not getting an email with a survey. You're real-time interacting with one of my staff members, telling them how they did, good, bad, or ugly. And they'll get better for it, and we're gonna close the loop with you. And I can see across my organization how the feedback is flying at the different levels. Are we engaging? You heard me say earlier, I engage with all levels of the organization. I go right to the facts, and the facts are at the tip of the spear. And the tip of the spear is our associates. And my leadership team is great. I'm blessed beyond measure with the talent that surrounds me at my direct level. They're wonderful people, but things get filtered. They do. I want to hear straight from Johnny. This allows me to do that. I'm interacting with all the associates on this app daily, weekly, and they do give me feedback. I ask them directly, hey, how'd that town hall go? What can I do better next time? And they like to tell me. I mean, I had one person tell me, and I'll shut up here because this is the feedback, is that you seem to ramble a lot. You tell a lot of stories. Can't you just tell us what's going on with the business and move on? So the feedback sometimes isn't what you think it's going to be, but I'm glad that they feel comfortable and confident that they can share that with me. You can go to the next one. I'm constantly craning my neck and asking my direct reports to look past the horizon of the turf that we're on today. And these are all the team names that make up the organization I'm responsible for. I want to see how the teams are interacting. I mentioned the term silo killer earlier. I almost wish we didn't have names of teams, and it was a group of people that just had a lot of skill and knowledge and could share it together. Because there's things in the STAR team that the ATM team could probably benefit from. So I want to be able to see how the collaboration is. This is a collaboration web. This is our data that Cliff and his team put together for us so I can see it. That is collaboration in flight. That was my hope looking over the horizon. This is silo killing at its best. This is the beginning and the middle, because we're not to the end, of building a collaborative, engaged workforce. You can go to the next page. I think this is you, Cliff.
Yep. Thanks, Patrick. Yeah, so just to round out here the visuals, this is one where so the feedback that comes through for Fiserv, it's certainly quantitative in that people can give different scores on things, but a whole component of this is actually on the qualitative side, right? All the comments that come in. And so what you're seeing here, we have the ability to actually quantify that unstructured data using highly sophisticated algorithms, specifically that get at natural language processing. And so we can do all this topic modeling and break down and understand key themes. And in Fiserv's case, they have very, very specific dimensions that they want to improve on, because they know that their associates, if they do well on those dimensions, it actually moves the needle in terms of their growth, in terms of the company, in terms of the individuals. And so here you're seeing that over time, as a collective, they're getting better on these dimensions. And we're analyzing all that unstructured data that's coming in and then showing that how that needle is being moved here as part of that process.
You can just go to the next page for time's sake, Cliff.
Okay.
Because it's kind of the same thing. So this is the Your Voice survey function, where every year all 44,000 employees receive a survey, 50, 60 questions. And we categorize it in terms of performance excellence for our customers and each other, employee engagement, how engaged is the workforce, and then leadership excellence. And I already mentioned that I'm a geek with this stuff, and we're never going to be able to create a nirvana, but we can create an environment that is a big flag on the hill waving that people want to go towards and join and rally around. I think Fiserv is that company. And I think with the leadership we have, I know it is. Our part of that mission is, are we keeping our promises to our teams? And we used Develop Me after our last employee survey. We baked up all of our action plans of how we're going to improve the areas where we were weak numerically or percentage-wise in terms of approval from the employee base. And then how do we reinforce where we're really strong? Because I never want to lose sight of that. I just don't want to focus on the negative. We have a lot of strengths, and I want to keep pouring into those strengths. So one of the teams, worked with Cliff and company and created a Develop Me loop back on how we're doing on our action plans. And you can see how many comments we received back, over 2,000 comments. And the teams spend time on it, not because I make them, because they actually have seen the other side of this rainbow, and that if you have an engaged workforce, the quality of the work goes up. And back to COVID. I mean, many people are stuck in their homes. We can't see them. How do we keep them engaged with us so the quality of the work for our customers, what our banks and credit unions pay us for, and what our shareholders expect to provide from a return perspective, how do we keep them engaged in this difficult period? And this tool helps us see those things. And we've used it to great success, and the other teams will start rolling out their own version of this, and the survey's coming up again, and we'll judge ourselves again. Constantly looking to be better. I had a direct report once say, practice makes practice. So we're never gonna be perfect, but we can keep striving for excellence, because you can touch that on occasion on the way to perfection. And I don't hold that above people. There's too many things involved here, too many moving pieces, too many moving parts to be perfect. But man, I think this tool, I know this tool, and the way we're leading Fiserv, at least the cards division, the one I'm responsible for helping lead, we're doing that in a big way. We're making a difference in building a collaborative environment, and this tool is a big piece of that. That's it for me, Cliff.
All right, great. Thanks so much, Patrick, and really appreciate your sharing your insights here. And just a few housekeeping items, and then we're going to turn it back to Jose for Q&A. But if anyone enjoyed this and you want to join us tomorrow, we'll actually have another session on a totally different use case called human connectivity, the missing ingredient in digital transformation. It's at 9 to 9:45 EST, so please join us. To give you a sneak peek of what we're going to cover, it's how for a Fortune 100 firm is using real-time feedback to refine its entire stage gate process. So join us for that. And then we're also going to be giving you a free interactive tool that you can use back in your own company around how you can assess and qualify your own digital transformation strategy. So we'll give you some frameworks and some tools for that tomorrow. And lastly, because we are a feedback company, there is a link. I'm going to ask Jose to put it in the chat function here. Please give us feedback, give it to Patrick and me. It's a URL there, it's open, and you can let us know. And if there's anything that, I know we're doing Q&A now, that we're not able to answer your questions directly, please submit them to us either directly to my email or through the feedback form, and we'd be glad to get back to you. But I want to thank Patrick for holding this session with us, and I mean, the things that you're doing there, you and your team are just really incredible in terms of building that growth feedback culture and the holistic approach that you're taking. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Jose, to drive us home.
Outstanding, outstanding. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Cliff, for this coverage and sharing this journey with us. So there are a number of questions that came up, and there's kind of a flavor for these questions. And in the beginning, and this one is for you, Patrick, is that how do you set the stage in the organization for this change even to occur? Because there's a level of openness here and trust and vulnerability that in some organizations and cultures is very easy to even start that conversation. So curious about how you got the conversation started at Fiserv, and then even before you roll out the technology that allow you to do it.
I've been on a leadership journey that started probably 12 years ago, and I learned some hard lessons about open and honest dialogue within the organization. I was missing a lot of things as I was progressing up the organization, getting more responsibility, taking care of more things, and things were just going by me in troubling ways that I was missing. So, first thing you do is you look in the mirror and say, why is this stuff happening? And that's always dangerous, as Cliff and Develop Me will say, because you're giving yourself feedback. But I reached out to a few mentors who I thought were just stellar leaders. And I went out in a really big way, and you said vulnerable. I went out in a big way and started showing my self-awareness to my teams that we're not perfect people. You're not going to get everything right all the time. Accountability has to be levied. You can't run a business like this or be part of the business like this and impact tens of millions of dollars and it be okay again and again and again. So it's not an environment that's easy. So we know that. What can we do to offset the not easy? And that's engaging each other. How do we show interest in each other's careers? How do we help each other? How do we tell people that it's okay to ask for help? There's no way you can know everything in this business. I'm 23 years in. I still call. I have lifelines to people all over the organization. What does this mean? What did we do here? Why would we do that? Help me understand. So I just started there. I just started showing myself to people. And then I started to gather direct reports and build an organization that were like-minded, technically savvy, technically astute, but had a heart for people. So, and we started hiring for heart and positive mental attitude. You can, through a series of questions or just practice, tell who you're with, tell who you're interviewing, feel how they're going to work out. Is it perfect every time? No. But I wanted a heart-led organization because, again, something customers can feel. Then you introduce a tool like this. People are already used to transparency, and they give a little trust in the corporate environment, which sometimes can be a cold place. So you start with that. You start with the human component. You work on it, you demonstrate it, you lead from the front on it, you show your own vulnerabilities, and then you start introducing the technology where you can embrace even more people with that and reach even more people. So hopefully I answered it.
Oh, you're on mute, Jose.
Yeah, it helps if I unmute myself. I was really listening, so I muted myself.
That's great.
Yeah, and that's fantastic. There's so much detail and richness, I'm sure, behind that on the mechanism you actually deploy to make that happen. And I want to emphasize again to the audience that I have placed the link that Cliff mentioned in the chat here. So you can click on that link to provide the feedback and maybe some questions directly to both Patrick and Cliff. So we have time here for a short question and answer. And Cliff, this is a little bit more towards you. How do you balance this deployment of the application with, you talk about the client feedback, you talk about the customer service or client service reps. Tell us a little bit about deploying that with those target groups. How do you deploy the app with them?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's anytime that we have an engagement, there's a number of stakeholders that you obviously have to take into consideration. And in the case of Fiserv, it all started with their goals, right? And so that's meeting with leaders like Patrick and his team members and understanding what those goals were. And then from that standpoint, aligning and creating strategic communications that align with those goals. So before a client even touches the tool itself, the client is already being acclimated to the fact that Fiserv wants them to have a certain experience. And so we think of technology deployment as a technology itself, but we actually contextualize that by looking at everything as part of that, and that includes the lead up, the during, and then the ongoing engagement. And so having that strong partnership with the internal team is really key, because without that, I mean, you really want to drive their initiatives forward. So we work really closely with the internal teams to understand what their goals are and then map the competencies and deployment plan and ongoing engagement around that.
Wow, that's terrific.
I had to assign, people specifically for this as well, Jose. Right?
Yeah.
It's not a part-time job for a few of my folks where this is what they do, is they meet with Cliff and the team. They build the reports. They're doing the training internally to get the app in customers' hands, the employees' hands. So when you use the word partnership, it truly is that. You can't expect development to do all that stuff for you. You have to want it, and then you have to hold people accountable to go execute it for you.
Well said. Well, gentlemen, culture is the ultimate competitive advantage for any organization, and it's a real privilege to have two cultural leaders sharing this real practical experiences with us. Thank you so much for being here with us, sharing your expertise, sharing your journey. We really appreciate that.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our first day of Financial Services Live. But tomorrow we have an incredible lineup. Let me reveal that with you shortly here. Cliff already mentioned to you that he is going to kick off us tomorrow with Michael Rivera, associate professor at Temple University, and they're going to discuss the human connectivity and how that is the missing ingredient in digital transformations, and how really to close that gap. After that, we're going to have the leader from Siemens discussing with us the importance of bringing a process management approach into system migration projects. So Nurai Gortekin Sen, she's the head of business excellence and operational transformation for Siemens, and she's going to be speaking directly about her experience at Siemens leading teams into this systemic migration, system migration projects. And after that, we're going to discuss digital growth strategies. And this will be with Saeed Sanalau, who will talk about, he's the Vice President of Corporate Strategy and Strategy Planning for Wells Fargo. And he's going to discuss with us all that's going on, the latest that's going on in terms of digital growth strategies, some of which we touched on today on the Huawei's presentation early on. He's going to go deeper on how Wells Fargo is taking that digital journey. And we're going to wrap up tomorrow with a presentation from Ewan Goddard, who is the change leader for Voya Financial. And Ewan is going to talk to us about the impact of COVID-19 in transforming how we work, engage, and interact with each other, and certainly how we deliver value to customers. So he's going to describe the Voya Financial journey and the impact of COVID-19 on internal business operations, but certainly on the way that they address market needs. So very excited about those presentations tomorrow. I hope to see you all back here tomorrow. Please, if you have comments, if you have questions, just tag us on the LinkedIn post that we have for BTOES Financial Services. You can look under my name, Jose Perez, on LinkedIn, and you see the posting. Or you can also tag under the posting from the CEO of Proqis Digital, Vijay Bajad, who has a posting as well. But keep the conversation going, ask your questions, leave your comments, and we're very appreciative of you spending the time with us today, and we look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Take care, have a good rest of your day, whatever you are in the world.